One of the many great things about being able to sew is you can literally create anything. From bags to garments to accessories, even shoes if you will. There is no limit in what you can do when it comes to sewing. But what's greater is having the ability to recreate something out of things that has no more value or things that are not being used anymore. My dear friends, I'm talking about upcycling. How do you turn this into this? Today, I will venture into a new sewing adventure by recreating a modern Victorian corset out of my old leather pants. And no, it's not for me. Coming up with this idea took me a while, as I don't want to recreate something that I won't probably be wearing or probably be using. So I decided that I'm going to give it to someone stylish, and someone who can really pull it off. Funny story though, this pair of leather pants was gifted to me by the same person I'm making it for. Surprise there? Well, I'm pretty sure she will be thrilled. So I went online searching for a nice but easy to make corset patterns, and I stumbled upon a website that offers free digital downloads. And when I saw it, I knew I had to make it. So if you're interested in making your own corset patterns, go to araneablack.com and you will find loads of information about corset making and access to a couple of her free digital corset patterns. Just a little bit of disclaimer, I am not a professional couturier, but I will do my very best to create this amazing modern Victorian corset. And along the way, we will be talking about the upcycling process as well. So before getting into sewing, I had to cut out all my pattern pieces first. I began by gluing all the pattern pieces together that were printed on regular A4 size papers. I cut them down to the size I will be working with, and by also leaving room for seam allowances as well. If you have gone and downloaded any of araneablack.com's patterns, you will find it super comprehensive. From measurements to cutting, fabric selection, tools and notions, grading, and all the way to construction and alterations. It's unbelievably remarkable. Once all the pieces were cut, I proceeded in tracing out the patterns using a tailor's chalk onto the wrong side of the fabric, labeling them and making sure that I am aligned with the grain line. Though, I am not sure if this letter has a grain. Who knows? If you had the pleasure of working with leather, you would know that you cannot use pins on leather. A rotary cutter and some pattern weights will work great, but I still prefer drawing chalk lines on my fabric and cutting them down with my scissors. Actually, this worried me a little bit as I am not quite sure if the fabric will be enough for all the 12 pattern pieces. But it turned out, it's just barely enough, and the good news is, minimal waste, my dear friends. Minimal waste. I have managed to cut all the pieces for the corset from the leather fabric, from the leather pants, and I have labeled them according to the way they're going to be sewn. So this is number one. This is the center front, and right over here is where the zipper is going to be installed. So each side has 6 pattern pieces, and all of these will be sewn together. So, and that's what I'm going to do right now on my sewing machine. So it's a lot, but it's very easy to sew all of this together. And I have also managed to cut out my lining pieces over here. I haven't removed the paper because I don't want to get confused. Because if I remove this, I don't know which will go to which side. So here we are so far. Now my goal is to sew all of this together, and I'm going to sew the lining fabric as well. Upcycling, also known as creative reuse, is different from recycling, as it is the process of transforming unwanted products to new and useful items. Recycling is just mainly reusing the same items repeatedly, only for its intended purpose. According to statistics, 85% of unwanted clothes end up in landfills, which is equivalent to millions of kilos of textiles alone. Sadly, fast fashion is one of the main culprits in this environmental crime. And I am guilty to say that I too participate in fast fashion. Upcycling is a creative process that I personally enjoy but find challenge with. But how do we help our environment? This is not an issue that can be resolved overnight, but if we start little and rethink about the many ways we can repurpose our old clothes, then that can be a good starting point. Once all the pieces are sewn, it is time to press the seams flat, if that is possible with leather. So here is where we are so far. I was able to sew all of these pieces together, the fake leather from the pants and the lining pieces as well. So as you can see, no matter how hard I try to iron this leather piece or these leather pieces, it doesn't want to lay flat. However, I think once I've sewn the boning channels to it, it's going to look flatter, and that's my goal, because no matter how hard I try to press them flat, they don't want to. That's the beauty of working with leather. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to open up the seams, and I'm going to get like a strip of bias tape, and I'm going to sew them down right onto the center of the seam, and this will actually create the boning channels so that we can insert our boning. The boning channels are then sewn down onto all the seams, including the center back where the grommets are going to be installed. This will allow for more support once the ribbons are inserted for closure. The boning I'm using is made out of plastic, also called Rigelline boning. Historically, boning is made out of whale bones. Like, we can afford to kill whales just for the sake of fashion. They are endangered, my friends. So I settled to just use this plastic one, which is not environmentally friendly too, but that's a discussion for another time. But also because nowadays, one can just simply find an actual whale bone. Other boning includes synthetic baleen, spiral steel, and flat steel, or even cording can be used as boning structures. The ends of the boning are polished either by a nail file or, in my case, melting the ends with a lighter. This is so that there are no rough edges that could possibly poke out of the boning channels. Once this is all done, the boning strips are inserted into the boning channels. I am now sewing the separating zippers to the front of the corset bodice. This is done by placing one side of the zipper tape, right side facing down, aligning the edges of the center front. This is going to be stitched down using a zipper fit. Once sewn, a top stitching on the outside would be nice and will secure the zipper in place. Next up is the lining fabric. The lining fabric is sewn by placing it right side onto the right side of the corset, aligning only the zipper and the center front. The lining will eventually be placed into the inside of the corset with its right side on the outside. I know that's a bit confusing, but I hope you get the idea. Oh, I am glad I'm almost done. To finish the edges of the corset, I am sewing in strips of bias binding to enclose all the raw edges together. This is one tricky part as I will have to ensure that the ends of the binding are folded to the inside and neatly sewn into place. This is to avoid having loose threads hanging from the corset. Alright, so finally I was able to create the actual corset. So I have installed the zipper in the center. I have lined it already. Oh, excuse those cat hair going all around. And I was able to sew in the binding all over. So the final step is to actually attach our grommets. So I'm gonna install the grommets and we'll go over to my friend's house and let's see how it looks on her. So, see you. leather pants to corsets? Can it be more couture than this? Upcycling can be couture, you know. I personally enjoyed this process and this sewing adventure. Now, my leather pants doesn't have to just sit somewhere and be forgotten. It can be worn, alas. My dear friends, I'm urging you to share your upcycled projects by tagging Brother Middle East and Africa on Facebook or Instagram. And if you made it until the end of this video, good for you. Once again, my name is Julius from So It's Your Style, and thank you very much for joining me on this mildly chaotic sewing adventure.